Hello, hello, welcome to the Train Buddy Shop, where I've got an engine today that we're going to put a decoder in. And so let's get started. This looks like it is a F3. Uh-oh. We've got some extra wheels here. I'm not quite sure I bargained for this. Decoder, and it says modify the wheels, so let's see what we've got. This is looks like an Athearn, or it is an Athearn. You can sometimes tell by the plastic pieces. This is an older Athearn. The newer ones, they have screws in here. Those plastic pieces will give way after time. Very classic Athearn style engine. And we're going to go ahead and this will be a good one. All right, so before we put the wheels on, let's take a look at the chassis. Athearn started putting in these weights because the weight over the engine tells you how much you can pull. So this is a classic lead weight. We're not going to need that. Matter of fact, we may have to modify that in order to put the decoder in. Very quickly, we're going to take this piece off. There's a spring here that goes across the top. I need a pointer is what I need. Let's find a pointer. There's a good pointer. So if you look right here, you can see that there's a brass spring that goes across the motor, and then there's this metal, springy metal, right, that goes, steel, I guess, spring steel, that goes across the top. And right in between here, this is holding, so I'm going to take that off, and you can see that. This is holding the spring and also the brush for the motor. So this is the commutator and the brushes, and we're going to have to take that off because what we have to do is we have to isolate this motor from the frame, and so I'll show you that in just a second. So we'll put that aside for a second. One of the easiest ways that I've found to get this apart is to use a screwdriver, specifically a Phillips head screwdriver, and kind of push on these, right, to get it out. And you'll see I'm kind of making little indents. Oh, see, that already moved just by pushing hard on it. Sometimes they come out real easy, sometimes they don't. Okay, so it's already out. That was easy. All right, when you take it apart, what you'll see is the bottom, and let's take this plastic piece out and put it back where it belongs. You'll see the bottom strap that holds the motor together too, by the way, has got these little pins, and the little pins then touch this part of the frame, and so this is where we're going to isolate this. Now we're not going to need these for the moment. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that this doesn't touch. Well, the easiest way to do that is to take these off, or just to turn the motor over. Well, because this has got the set pieces for these guys at the bottom, what we're going to do instead is take the brass piece off. So before you take the brass piece off, make sure you put your finger up here, right? So we can use either not my pointer, but use a small screwdriver and just kind of twist it a little bit, and be careful because right there is the spring. See it? Right there's the spring, and if you're not careful, it just goes splong. All right, so we're going to go ahead and drop out the spring, and there's the brush right next to it. And do the same thing on the top. There's the top, and there's the spring. See, it just came right out, and the brush is, there it is, right behind it. Okay, now we know which is the bottom and which is the top because the bottom has got these two prongs on it and the top does not. This is classic Athearn. All right, now what we're going to do next is we're going to do, very simply, we're going to take Captain tape. You could use Scotch tape if you want. Scotch tape will get hard over time and brittle. Captain tape is preferred. All right, so I'm going to take a piece that's about the right size there. All right, and we're going to cut that. So you can use just about anything to cut it. I'm going to use a X-Acto knife. All right, and then we're going to move our penny. So I'm just going to put that here temporarily. All right, move our penny so we can keep track of where the edge of our Captain tape is. And now we're going to place it down inside of there. Now Captain tape is made specifically to isolate or insulate. So we're going to use it as an insulation. It doesn't get brittle. It doesn't get sticky. Okay? So these are the reasons why you use it. And I'm just going to go ahead and carve out the pieces that we don't need. Here and over here, extra pieces. If I'd moved my penny, I wouldn't have had to do this. All right, there we go. And down in these corners now, we want to make sure that we've got the Captain tape is all down secure in the corners. And the other thing that we want to make sure is we've got a place for these plastic pieces to come up through these holes. So I'm just going to poke a hole in them. Right? Well, we could use the knife. We could use just about anything. Let's use the knife, right? Make a crisscross. And we can go ahead and set these back down in here. Now we don't want to push them all the way. We're just going to set them there for the moment. Okay, now when we put this back in there, it'll be insulated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these around. I'm actually going to use the smooth one now on the bottom. So before I put my brush, I'm going to take a look at it, make sure it's nice and clean. It looks nice and clean, not a lot of stuff on it. Set my brush in there, set in my spring. Okay. Maybe put it down here on the table so you can see it. And before I put this on, I'm going to need to solder a wire to it. Now, in the scheme of things, we're not quite sure which way this goes, so we're going to have to apply electricity to it to determine which way it goes. You want the engine to go forward when it's when plus is applied to it, and negative when plus is applied to one side and negative to the other side. Whichever way that motor goes, that's plus. That's forward. I'm sorry. So forward should be plus and minus. We don't know, because of the way we're sitting here, which way is forward, which way is backwards. We can assume, because of the way the frame is cut this way, that this is the front, so it would be going this way. We know the motor came out in this direction, right? And so we can kind of play a game here. We can move this and see which way the wheels go. Sometimes it's easier to do this when you got the motor in there. If I remember right, the one on the bottom is the orange lead. So I'm just going to got a whole bunch of extra orange wire sitting around. I'm just going to take an orange wire, right, and we're going to go ahead and connect it to this piece of brass. Somewhere, there it is. So we're going to take our stripper, and this doesn't move, so you could do this either with you could either do it with stranded wire or solid wire. This is all decoder wire is typically stranded because there are places where you're going to need it. Now this is going to be like this, okay? And I want it to come up around this side for whatever reason, right? And so I'm going to tin it first. So we're going to use our solder to tin the wire. So I'm at about 550 F on this particular soldering iron, right? And we're going to solder to this. Now I'm going to have to do it quick because otherwise I get burnt, right? And all I want to do is just get just a little bit started on that. And now I can take these two. Now I got to hold this because otherwise I'm going to have a problem. So I'm just going to hold it with that pair of pliers, right? And we're just going to solder to that. And it should be pretty quick because both of them are pre-tinned. Right? Got it. Okay. Now that that's all set up like that, again, I'm going to put the spring back in. It came out again. Right? Put the spring back in. And we're going to take this and put it on there. Now this might be hot, so you want to kind of watch how you do this. I'm going to use a pair of pliers. Just keep my fingers out of the way. And it's a strap that comes over, right, and pins down. Yeah. Well, it's cooled off, believe it or not, so I can use my fingers. And again, we have to make sure that we get the spring in there right. Okay. Pull the motor together. There we go. Okay. While we're in there, we probably want to put just a drop of conductive lubricant. So we're cleaning it up as we go. Just put a drop of conductive lubricant right there. Right. And kind of spin the motor, let it move that in there. Okay. This motor feels very, very tight. I guess it's because I don't have the other strap on there yet. Okay. Oftentimes when we come in here, we're already tearing these things apart pretty good, so it's time to do a little bit of lube and clean. Again, this is a conductive lube, right? And I'm just going to use it to clean up the commutator on this engine. I don't know whether or not it's been run for a long time, hasn't been run for a long time, was bought used, have no idea. All right. So we're just going to go ahead and clean that up, make that nice and shiny. All right. The other thing that you want to do for most commutators is clean out the path between the two pieces. The two these aren't called brushes, but they're the copper, whatever you call them, pieces on the commutator, sections, copper sections on the commutator. All right, that's good. We're ready to put the top piece on, but before we put the top piece on, what do we want to do? Well, one of the things we want to do is get rid of these metal tabs that kind of stick up. They're okay, but we don't need them. So you can either squish them down real hard, right, like that, right, or you can take them off. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do one for one and one for the other. Okay, flip it a couple times, and that's kind of why I don't do this, I guess. It takes too long to get it off. And then I still got a tail on it. There we go. All right, now I want to solder a gray wire, right, to the negative side. Now again, we're not sure which is positive and which is negative. We're going to find out as soon as we get it in there. I may want to rethink which is positive and which is negative. If I remember right, it's the top that is negative and gray. So again, doing the same thing we did before. Right, we're going to put a little bit on there, And this doesn't always happen this quick, but on this copper, you can see that the solder grabs pretty quick on that. It's already starting to get hot. That was bright, Parker. Okay, let's put, let's do this, right? And let's see, that one came out that way. Make it look pretty. Alrighty then. Okay, now let's again do the same thing we did before. We've got a flat piece, right? We've got a curved piece and a flat piece, so the curved piece goes down towards the commutator, right? Put the spring in. This spring looks a little crusty. Like somebody's tried to do this and pinched it. Well, hopefully that will work well. If we gotta fix it, we'll fix it later. Let's try this again. Put just a drop, right, or two on here, and now put your strap back on your motor. Remember again that it does a compression on the motor, so you have to kind of pull the motor together as you're doing this. And you might want to wait till it cools off. I'm trying to do this without waiting. And the spring kind of got gollywampus in there, so we're going to kind of fix that up before we put the top on. Now notice if you got too much solder, if you've got solder on the inside, this wouldn't hold together. All right, let's see what we got. All right, motor's doing well. Again, while we're here, let's go ahead and put lubricant. And so I got too much of that other stuff hanging around here, so let's kind of clean that up. You don't want the conductive lubricant to be all over the commutator when you start it up, otherwise you get sparks and smoke and a bunch of other stuff going on. Okay, and we want to go ahead and then lubricate, right, the end pieces of this. And again, you don't want to get any lube on the commutator. You just want it on the bearing. And hopefully you can see that bearing in there, and then the outside bearing right there. Okay, just a drop is all you need. Okay, spins pretty good. Now let's put a little bit of electricity on this, just see, make sure that the motor is working well. And it should be, because we almost did a full restoration on this motor. Alright, so we got this connected. We need to get our clips connected. Alright, so we do plus and minus over here. Get our power supply cranked up. Alright, now, again, plus is typically the orange, right? And the gray is usually the minus. Not usually, it's what it's supposed to be. And let's see how the motor runs. Well, it runs pretty good. It's got a bunch of little wonky things going on the side there. 0.13, 0.14 at 2.7 volts. Now, we say stall current. Stall current is very important. I have no doubt that the stall current on this is going to be satisfactory. It needs to be less than 1 amp. If you look at any of these decoders, they will tell you what the peak. So it says here provides 1.3 amp continuous and 2 amps, if you can see that, and 2 amps peak draw. So we don't want to have any more than 1.3, and 2 amps is considered the stall current. Okay, so let's hold now the motor. So I'm going to hold it with 3 fingers, and I'm going to turn up. You can't see it, but I'm turning it up. I'm 2.4, 3, 4, 5. I'm at 6 volts, and I have 0.78. So if I just extrapolate that to 12, right? I'm at 0.9. I'm at 1 amp. 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'm at 1.45 amps. So I am just where I need to be. Any more than that, and I would say we don't need to use this decoder, or we need to remotor it. This is just exactly where we should be. Okay. All right. Now let's get ready. Let's put the motor back in the engine. This was the hard part. Okay. So we're going to put this strap in here like this. The strap in here. Yeah, we're finished with the hard part. Now, to put this back in, I may want to fudge a little bit. Put that one in there that way. This one's not going to go in too well. So let's try this a different way. Let's go ahead and take the caps off. And again, usually I end up tearing the whole thing apart anyhow. So let's take these end caps off. Let me show you how to do this. These end caps go over top of the worm. You can get to it from here, kind of, if you pry them apart. Let's see the end of it there, right? You can pry them apart from here, right? Sometimes I like to put them up from the bottom because you can get in between the shell and the cap, and it just pops off just like that. See that? Okay. When you take this out into the three pieces, the cap, the worm, right, and then here is the base, and we're going to get to that in a second. Do the same thing on the other side. Worm the cap and the base. Okay, so that was for this side. Keeping our orientation of this is forward. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and put the motor back. Right, the motor goes this way. Notice you've got a long piece that goes in here. Get our plastic piece back. Right. And we're just going to put it in there, and we're going to push on it. Right. Got to get this light out of the way. We're not going to use this light anyhow, so we might as well just take it out. It's kind of in our way. Well, come on out of there. There you go. It's in our way. Now I'm just going to go ahead and press down on this. Okay. And as I press down on it, I should lock it into the frame with the little plastic pieces. Okay. I'm going to have to move them in a little bit. They kind of spread when you tried to push on them. And push down on from the top, just like that. Now, if these are damaged or destroyed, you can get new ones. Sometimes you can get them get them off of eBay. Some people sell them. Athearn sold them for many years, and so they're still old new stock sitting around. If you can't do that, then I have been known to use a Permatex. This is not an advertisement for this company, but clear RTV silicone adhesive sealant. We use this on a lot of things. You can get this at your local auto store. All right, put these in here. Let's make sure that they're in there well. Okay, we got one that's being stubborn. This one over here. Let's kind of push on that and see if we can get it to go down where it belongs. Come on. Come on. Nope, still didn't want to go down there. There we go. Needed to move over just a tad. Yeah, it's pretty important that these go in and are level. Otherwise, your motor's gollywampus in the frame and shake the living daylights out of it. There you go. Okay, I feel good about that. All right, now that we've got those there, let's make sure we get this wire up from around. this is an important wire. It goes to the motor. All right. And for giggles, let's go ahead and put in this front truck. How did that go? Well, it went this way. All right. Go ahead and put this front truck in like this. Let's go ahead and put the gear in it. I probably should have done the back one. It would have been a lot easier. I know you can't see this, and we'll go back to that later. I'll show you better in the back one what I'm doing. But what I want to do at this point is I want to confirm forward and backwards. Now, if we're real lucky, or if my memory is just super keen, right? When we attached the plus and minus to the motor, it will go in the direction of the front, which was the front right here. So it will go in this direction once we apply power, plus and minus, to the motor. Oop. What's going on here? I get a bind here somewhere. Okay, there it goes. Whoop, whoop. Well, kind of there it goes. The back one went. Oh. Well, you can't see it. You can't see it, but it's trying to move. Oh, it's not moving forward because of this. Anyways, it's correct. So I never have this much trouble when somebody isn't watching. Anyways, so this piece, by the way, can come off because we're not going to use that. We can set it back later if we have to. Let's take this truck back off again. And it's kind of in our way. It just slips on and off. I don't know if you see back in here, it's got little stripes. Try not to hurt myself. Some people will solder to this. You don't need that part. You can solder to the frame by soldering to this piece. And as you'll see, we're going to use a different kind of lighting system in this. So we don't need the light and that stand there. One of the other issues that happens with these engines is the just noticed we had some little pieces here that I think I've lost somewhere. One of the other things that happens with these style of engines is that the pickup, as you see in this wheel, the pickup from this side goes through this strap, and if you remember right, that was here, that was touching there, and went to the top on the motor. So that was the plus side, or that was the minus side. The plus side, which is the right rail, right rail, which is over here, right, comes up across the strap. These two don't touch here on purpose, because this is the right rail, this is the left rail. Well, the right rail then goes in this little hole, has a hole in that strap, and that strap then goes into that hole. And so the power is coming from the wheel, going through the strap, going through here to the frame, right, and going up into the motor. Well, that's not quite how this is going to work. As a matter of fact, we're going to bypass that. But we want to make sure that this has good conductivity. Well, I can go ahead and rely on that. The easy fix here is to go ahead and rely on that, and then to go ahead and put the positive, since that's the right rail and right wheel, I can put the positive and just go ahead and solder to this on the decoder, and that would work, but it's not real reliable. So if I want to have this engine run, reliably over the years, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bypass this mechanism, and I'm going to go directly to the wheel. So this is something that not a lot of people do, but we do it here at the Train Buddy shop, and it's something that I invented 10-15 years ago, and we use it quite reliably. As a matter of fact, I was told about this by someone many years ago, whose name I've forgotten right now, but he mentioned it to me, and again, that became something that we did religiously here. So here's the decoder, again, a T1 decoder from our friends at TCS. This is the strap, right? Here's the decoders in the bag. We'll leave that in the bag for the moment, because all we really care about right now is the strap and where we're gonna place this. The positive lead then is red from the right side, and I gotta get some more wire here, so I'm gonna get that wire, and it looks like that wire. Those are pretty thin. These absolutely must be stranded. They cannot be solid. If they were solid, what will happen is they will eventually fail. So having them stranded like this is the only way to go. I've got some other looking for some more red wire here. There we go. All right, let's use this instead of using this other. All right, so this is what we're going to do here. We're going to take a little bit of this wire, and we're going to take this truck. I'm going to take the side frame off. Now, on these particular models, the side frame just pops off. I'm going to then put a red wire on this, but in order for me to put it on there so that it stays, I need to rough up this steel. It doesn't want to solder well, and I'm actually going to rough up really intending on roughing up the rivet, the brass rivet that's there. Just put a rough spot on it, like that. Right. We're going to go ahead and put a little spot of solder on that right there, and we want to be, again, minor. We don't want to have very much at all on there. It has to stick, though. It has to stick. And you can tell that it's just starting to stick. You got plastic underneath that, and you're going to have plastic on top of it, so keep in mind that's going to happen. All right, let's go ahead and tin our wire. Okay, and we're gonna make sure that it goes in this direction, and you'll see why in just a second. And we're going to tack those two together just like that. Doesn't take much. Right? We're being real gentle with it, right? And we want it to tack. All right, now we want to take any excess solder that we have off. So let's get a nice flat file, right? And we're gonna kind of flatten that out. You'll see here in just a second. Right, don't be filing on the pins now. Just flatten that piece out like that. Now, if you can see the way these fit together, these two pins go into these two holes, that pin goes into that hole. So when you put this together like this, right, that wire can't interfere with it. Now, notice the wire does interfere with it right there. Okay, so you got two options. You can either try to move the wire, right? You can either move it behind it, like that. Okay, so it comes up through that little groove right there. You can have it in front of it, right? So that it goes to the other groove, right, like that. Or you can just file a little groove into this in the right spot. So with this triangular file here, I know that it goes right there, so I'm just going to put a couple little file marks in there, and I've made a thing at the top. You're not going to see this when it's on. It's going to be up inside the engine, and so that fits nice and flat, and it has a spot in there for the wire. Okay, we're not going to do it on the other side because we have a strap that we can do there, just on the red side. Okay, so I'm going to come back up through here, right, and it goes into the section there. Now notice the wire doesn't come up through, so it's like, where are we going to come up through? Well, we need to come up through here. So let's go ahead and cut this, cut our red wire. Let's not be stingy with it. Right? Let's come back up again through, right? We'll go through the front, right? Up and back through here. And anytime you have something like this, you want to make sure that you have plenty of play. And it looks like we probably should come in through the back instead of the front. See how the back is showing, the red is showing right there. So we would probably be better off to go through the back. So let's take it out again, go up through the back. In some of these, you actually have to file a hole in the frame. This one doesn't. It looks like we've got plenty of room, so we're not going to do that on this one. All right, so we got that together, right? Before we put this in, right, one of the things we want to do is, again, use a lubricant. This is a special gear lube that's grease in room temperature. So we're just going to put just a little bit of that on there. We don't need much. These two bearings here are called are sintered brass. Sintered brass is like, I call it Pringles, right, where you take brass and chew it up into little tiny pieces and then you metal. These bearings, which are not ball bearings, but they are sleeve bearings, will, over time, they will start to oxidize, and they will get kind of a green color because there's a space in between it which is supposed to have lubricant in it. So what we're going to do is make sure that this is, again, lubed correctly. We've got the gear grease on. We're going to put these little square sintered brass sleeve bearings, right? And you'll see these a lot in Athearn engines and also lifelike engines, which are a copy of that. You'll see some very similar to it in Atlas. Many of the Atlas engines have round sintered brass because these square ones are hard to get in, right? Sintered brass. And now we're going to add some lubricant to them. Now we're just going to use motor lubricant. This is real fine motor lubricant. And the sintered brass then will suck all that up. I'm going to make sure we do it where the bearing surfaces are, as well as in the bearings themselves, right? And now we're going to put the cap back on because we're done with this. We are finished here, right? And you'll hear it snap back into place, right? Now let's go and do likewise on the back. So we'll cut the video for the moment while I do that.